Thank you. Thank you, Captain Obvious. All right, so when you visualize, you are creating a mental picture in your head of the characters and events in the story. So we're using our senses. We're using what we know to help us visualize. When you're reading a story, see, I'm the type of person that I like to see a movie before I read the book. Why? Well, so I can see the characters as I'm reading them. But other people, I know, like the opposite. They would rather read the story and visualize in their own thoughts. I, on the other hand, am a little opposite with that. I like to do it. I like to know beforehand what they look like so I can make a visual picture. All right, now. Turn around, Sebastian. So, visualize. Now, this is a anchor chart. We are going to copy it down. So, we're going to put visualize in the middle of it, actually. Visualize. When you visualize, you create, or use your senses, excuse me. Use your senses to create pictures in your mind as you read. Big old circle around that. Bless you. You would ask yourself these questions. What do I see in my mind? Next question would be, what would I smell? What would I hear? What would I taste? And then what would I feel? Once you have finished writing that, open up your book to page 142, please. 142. In the reading book. What, baby? Yeah. 142. Your reading book. Yes, this is. Yes. Not the green and white one. Your reading book. Okay, so let's look at the genre of this story. This is a historical fiction. Historical fiction is a story that is set in real time in place in the past. Historical fictions include characters who act, think, and speak like real people from the past would. Authors of historical fictions tell the story through the plot or the main events of the story. And authors of historical fiction may use figurative language to develop the setting and the characters. Let's look at the illustration. What do you notice? What? Okay, the girl looks mad. What else do you see?
A boy playing in the background.
Looks like a boy playing in the background.
And it's also raining.
Okay, looks like it may be raining. What else do we notice about this picture?
That they're in like some kind of tent.
They're in some kind of tent or a wigwam.
That's not a wigwam.
That is a wigwam.
There's a girl that looks mad. It's a
Yep, there's a girl that looks mad. What,
They look like Indians.
Okay, they look like Native Americans. They're Native Americans in their, maybe their communities from the past. All right. So what do you want to learn about these characters?
What are their names?
Vivian?
Why she's mad.
Why she's mad? Okay, what else?
Why is the title called The Game of Silence?
Why the title's called The Game of Silence? Yep. What else? Huh? Why the boy's happy and looks like the girl is not? Yeah. All right, let's... Maybe the rain. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, page 144. I'm going to read the text in the introductory box. I will then talk about how the language used helped me visualize what the neighboring tribes may look like during the time period. I picture people in very worn Native American clothes who look extremely worn out, sad, and hungry. Omakayas is an Jabawi girl who lived with her family on Lake Superior. In 1850, and members of a neighboring tribe have just recently arrived after being forced from their land. They have traveled a long way. They are tired, hungry, and raggedy. Omakayas and her brother are at home with their grandmother, Nokomis. They begin to play a silent game while they wait for others to arrive so the adults can discuss what is happening to their people. Words, words, words. Pressing up from her stomach, trembling on her lips. Words buzzing in her throat like caught bees. Banging in her head. Harsh words, angry words. Sounds boiling up in her like sap. Wild things she couldn't let out. Yow! A kick from her brother almost caused Omakayas to blurt an exclamation. No! Omakaya sealed her lips together in a firm line and glared at her brother with all of the force pent up inside. If the fire from her eyes could scorn him, Pinch would be the first to yell out. Then he would lose the game of silence. But Pinch was used to receiving furious looks from his family. He knew just how to respond. First he looked innocently at Omakayas, as though he was ever innocent. He pretended he was unaware of a raging energy stuffed up inside of his sister. Then, as Omakayas in her eyes bored her eyes at him with increased intensity, he lolled out his tongue and twisted his face into a deranged and awful mask. His features shifted into one ugly and absurd face after the next until suddenly Omakayas just about almost laughed. Just in time, she clapped her hands to her mouth, closed her eyes, concentrated. Yes, Aya, or that means yes in their native language. She would be a stone next. Just kidding. Asinig, a pile of stone, each one harder and quieter than the next. She would be silent and more silent yet, and in spite of her annoying brother, she would win. She kept her eyes closed, but her forehead on her knees. Thought stone, stone, stone. A sin, which means stone. A sin. Filled her mind with the sound of falling rain, which was easy. Outside it was not just raining, but pouring down a drenching, cold, miserable early summer shower. Absurd. If something is absurd, you think it is silly or ridiculous. How does the illustration on page 146 help you to understand the relationship between Omakea and Pinch?
They don't like each other that much.
They don't look like they like each other very much. They look angry. Omakea looks like she's what?
Got a bunch of numbers.
Annoyed, or yes, look like he could. Does Pinch look like? Pinch looks like he's doing what?
Smiling.
He's smiling. He may be teasing her, trying to taunt her to make noises.
Yeah. He's making his innocent sheep mad at him.
Right. All right, page 147. The rain had lasted for days since the raggedy ones arrived. That was another thing. Besides Pinch, Omakea couldn't stand rain anymore. The water made mush of tender, new ground around her family's birch bark house. Droplets hissed through the roof, vent into the fire, driving stinging smoke into her eyes. And the roof... everyone around her was affected. Nakamis' old bones ached, and she creaked like a tree every time she moved. The watery wind sent coughs raking through her mother's chest. It was too wet to play outside and cold when it should have been warm. Worst of all, Omakea was stuck with Pinch. He nudged her. Omakea almost slugged him in return, but controlled herself. She'd had enough of him to last her whole life. She opened her eyes a fraction, then her eyes went wide in shock. Somehow, Pinch had got a hold of her beloved doll, and he was making it teeter on the cliff of his knee. Omakea bit her lip so hard it hurt. Pinch walked her doll to the edge of his knee, and then teasingly back. If only Mama was here. If only she would return. Nakamis concentrated on her work so hard it was impossible to distract her. Omakea pretended to shut her eyes again, but cleverly watched until just the right moment to snatch back her doll. She sighed as though she was falling asleep, and then, with a flash, she grabbed. Taken by surprise, Pinch couldn't react quickly enough to hold on, and Omakea triumphantly clutched her doll. She stuck it down the neck of her dress. There, safe. Inside, she laughed. And she didn't make a single sound, not a chirp, not so much as a mouse's squeak. What does the way Pinch steals the doll from Omakea indicate about his character?
What's the question?
What does the way Pinch steals the doll from Omakea indicate about his character?
He's snatched it out of her.
Yeah, what his character is. It could be annoying. It could be,
Super annoying.
yep.
Me?
Mean, yes. What else?
Like he always wants to bug her.
He could be sneaky. He did it when she wasn't looking because she had her eyes closed. He can be sneaky and crafty. What does the way Omakea gets her doll back from Pinch tell you about her?
She was being patient.
She's being patient. What else?
He got it on her own.
Okay, so she's maybe smart. And she's what?
I wasn't stealing that from his brother.
Determined. She was very determined to get that doll back. All right, next page, 148, please. She was going to win the game of silence. She just knew it. Pinch was now poking little twigs into the fire in the center fire pit, watching them burn. Omakea tried not to notice him, but his head was so big and fuzzy. Pinch's hair sprang out with its own energy. Crafty eyes in his rough, round face calculated his sister's endurance. He was surely cooking up some mischief. Sure enough, Pinch drew the burning wand from the fire and laid it innocently next to her ankle, as though she didn't know wait a minute. Yeah, next to her ankle, as though she didn't know that it would scorch her if she moved the slightest inch and make her cry out first and instantly lose the game. She kicked it back at him. Go. Pinch, she nearly warned, but bit her lip. Yeah. He mouthed the taunt, making an impossible, irritating face that almost broke Omakea's discipline. What makes Omakea almost lose the game? By crying out because of what?
Because it almost scorched her.
What almost scorched her?
That burning stick.
The burning stick. Pinch put a burning stick beside her ankle and it almost burned her. So she almost broke her silence.
No, that's dangerous.
It is dangerous. Luckily, just as the second that Omakea decided to forfeit the game and to smash her little brother over the head with a big tin soup ladle, the visitors arrived. They are here, said their grandmother. You can quit the game until after we eat. What do the expressions on the adults' faces tell us about the problem facing the tribes?
A very bad. One looks like
They look sad. They look very grim. They look sad that they're facing serious problems that may not be easily solved. They look very grim or sad. Grim and sad are very similar. Page 150. Omakea exploded with such a wild sound of rage that Nakamis jumped. Pinch retreated, unnerving by how sorely he tested his sister. Omakea breathed out in relief. These visitors were her friends and cousins, Twilight, Little Bee, and Two Strike Girl. They had brought the boy she called, in her mind, the angry one. Her cousins were her favorite friends, the ones she counted on. Twilight was much like her name, quiet and thoughtful. Little Bee was funny and bold. Two Strike was tough, and she could do anything a boy could do. Usually better, since her mother had died, she was wilder than ever. Even her father had not been able to handle Two Strike and had left her with Aunt Muskrat. But Aunt Muskrat had no success in taming Two Strike. Sometimes she was so fierce that she outdid everyone. It was a challenge to play with her. The girls had learned to sew and bead together, gathering berries and help their mothers clean fish. They also learned early on how to tan hides, a task that Omakea despised. And now, too, her sister Angeline was home. Omakea grinned with satisfaction. Pinch was delightfully outnumbered by girls and would pout, creeping to Mama's side when she arrived and turned into a baby, hoping to be pampered with tidbits of meat and maple sugar. Yes, ma'am.
my mom said the Indian tribe get their names from how they act. So they don't get their names until they're 4.
Yeah. Use details in the text to visualize what Two Strike may look like. What do you think Two Strike looks like? Jameson, sit up, buddy. Rough, okay.
I think I know who it is. I don't know. I'm sure it's not one.
What about is she gonna look like a girl because she wants to do girly stuff like collect berries and clean fish? No, she's probably like a tomboy. She's probably very maybe strong tomboy. She scowls on her face. She's wild. She has unkept hair. Maybe she's angry. What type of skills do Omakayas and her friends learn early on in life?
How to clean fish.
Clean fish, collect berries, sew, beating, tan hides. And how do these differ from the skills children learn today?
Back then they probably used knives to clean the fish.
Yeah,
And us kids, most of the time, are not allowed to use knives.
that's right.
I can use a knife. What do you think I said most?
What are other types of chores and stuff that we do that they probably wouldn't do?
Playing our phone.
Cleaning the room, playing on the phone, that's not a chore.
Okay.
Doing laundry, taking out the trash. I don't
Having to clean pine straw.
clean up pine straw. All right, page 152. Go ahead, Gabby. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. 152. Now everyone, the children and their parents, squeezed into the lodge. They had made the lodge extra big that summer for visitors. For the first time it was packed entirely full, but there was enough room for everyone. Even the angry one found a space to sit. He glared from a little spot against the wall. Together they ate rich venison soup from the shallow birch bark macacoon. Let me see. Macacoon. Yep, a container of birch bark folded and often stitched together with a basswood fiber. That's what a macacoon is. Macacoon. They'd brought along with them 2 other men squeezed in. Important men. Old Tallow entered, huge and rangy and smelling of wolf. She settled herself while outside her ferocious dog stood guard, unmoving and alert even in the pelting rain. Each of the old Tallow's feet seemed to take up as much space as a small child, but Omakayas didn't mind. Warily, but completely. She loved the fierce old women. Let me ask you a question. Why does old Tallow leave her dog standing guard outside the lodge during dinner? So what is the dogs doing?
It's a guard dog.
It's a guard dog. They're protecting them. They'll go off of any signs of trouble. Page 153. Each visitor brought a gift for the pile that the children who won the games of silence would choose from that night, for it was an important game. With the raggedy ones came serious doings, difficult questions, and impossible news. Great attention was needed. The grown-ups needed to counsel, think, absorb the facts, without having to shush small children. The children could tell how important the meeting was from the degree to which their silence was required. The pile of treats was the best ever. There was a bag of marbles, some of actual glass, not just clay, a pair of narrow moccasins. No. That Omakaya thought just might fit her, or moccasins, yes, but they spelled it differently. 1 doll, elaborately dressed in a tiny set of breeches and a leather coat. Thank you. Yeah. A sharp knife, a deer knuckle game, 2 duck bills of maple sugar tied together with split jack pine roots, 6 red ribbons, a little roll of flowered cloth, 8 tiny bells, 1 small bow, and 6 arrows tipped with red brass points cut from the trade kettle. The arrows were fletched with the sharp black and yellow feathers of a bird that the island where they lived was named for, the golden-breasted woodpecker. Old Tallow must have brought them. What treasures! The children examined them breathlessly, each picking out one particular prize they meant to win. Who does Amadeus think brought the treasures? Huh? Who specifically? Nope. Who specifically does she think brought the treasures? No. Right here, if you look, it says, Old Talos must have brought them. What treasures? Right there. Page 154. Littleby, of course, wanted the doll. Two-Strike Girl, the bow and arrow. Pinch coveted the knife, but he was torn by greed for the maple sugar and the need for marbles to replace those he'd lost. The angry one did not... Did they spell that wrong? Deign to move from the spot or look at the gift. No doubt he'd have no problem winning the game. As for Twilight, quiet and serene, she had no trouble playing the game and she would be content with anything. Amadeus wanted the ribbon, the bells, and the marbles too, but she'd settle on the moccasins because she had watched her grandmother make them so carefully. They were fancy, with velvet ankle cuffs and the top beaded with flowers and little white sparkling vines, worth her silence. Now, the grown-ups were ready to start talking. Nokomis sang the songs of the game of silence 4 times, nearly catching Pinch at the end. Then she turned away from them too, absorbed in the talk. Amadeus, oh wait, I got questions. Tram, sit up, baby. Which treasure does Amadeus finally decide she wants to win? The moccasins, and why is it important to her? Her grandmother made it. Why do you think Nokomis sings a song of the game of silence 4 times instead of only once? Nope.
Maybe because he's trying to get someone to talk.
She wants to give the children time to quiet down. She wants to give them time to quiet down so then they'll be silent. All right, next page, 155. Amadeus looked longingly at Twilight, and her cousins made a sad and frustrated face. With her favorite cousin so close and her annoying brother so near, it was difficult to play. If only they could talk. At first, the girls communicated by mouthing too great. They turned away from each other unwillingly. Amadeus listened to the rain, a solid drumming and hissing. Then she listened to the fire crackling and sighing. She watched the beautiful and changing glow of the coals. At some point, Amadeus could tell exactly when her attention was caught by something her father said. And then she noticed that her cousin Twilight was also listening to the grown-ups' conversation. Soon they all couldn't help but listen. They leaned forward and strained to hear every sound, almost forgetting to breathe. Why do the children have a difficult time looking at each other when playing the game?
Because it makes them laugh.
It may make them laugh. Yeah, if they look at each other, they'll probably making faces at each other or talking to each other, and then they'll laugh, so then they'll lose the game and they can't get their prize.
Who do you think's gonna win?
I don't know.
Probably her.
Page 156. That night, for the first time, everybody got their prizes. Nobody lost the game of silence. For that night, they knew the threat of a much bigger loss. They would all fear to lose something huge, something so important that they even knew that they had it. They never knew they had it in the first place. Who questions the earth and the ground beneath your feet? They had always accepted it, always here, always solid. That something was home. All right, I would like for you to read these 3 questions right here and fill in the answer for the collaborative discussion on page 157. You're doing the 3 questions on 157, and then we will go over them in just a few moments. I'm going to give you about 10-15 minutes to do these 3 questions. Make sure you're going back into the text and finding the answer. Jaden has not shown up yet. Hey, have you heard anything about if he's coming? done with number 2? Done with number 2? Are you done with number 2? Alright, let's look at question number 1. Open your book back up. Question number 1. Says we read page 144 to 145. What does Omakayas do to help her stay silent? Malaya. Malaya's going to tell me. Yes. She presses her lips together, glaring at her brother, clasping her hands over her mouth, keeping herself from laughing. Who plays the game of silent and why is the game being played? Who's playing the game of silence and why is the game being played? Vivian? The kids are playing all in the little hut. And why are they playing, Gabby?
They're playing because the parents are having a talk.
They're playing because the parents are having a meeting and they don't want them to interrupt. What details show that the night is important to Omakayas and her family? What details shows that the night is important for Omakayas and her family?
Because that's when the guests got there.
Okay, the guests, yep. The guests, they were all packed up in there. They had, what else did they have? The details that would make it an important night. They had nice treasures for the winners of the game. And what else? The dog, the guard dog. Yeah, and the treasures are the biggest that the children have ever seen. This shows how important the children to stay silent while the adults are having their meeting. All right, I'm going to put the list of words back up on here. You're going to go in the back of the book and find the words that we went over yesterday.
Definitions.
And we're going to write the definitions. You got about 28 minutes.
28
Not even that. You have about
10 minutes.
no
15. 10 minutes would be too short.
23 minutes.
15 would probably be
23. We have absurd, occurred, taunt,
how many what?
forfeit, despised, ferocious, elaborately, and then coveted. So you're to find the definition in the back of the book. That is our last task for reading for the week. Find the definition in the back of the book. Math will start at 9:25.